Welcome to another episode of Do Tell Virtually. Today we have a very special guest. If you follow us online, you might have noticed that we are big proponents of the need for any virtual speaker, presenter, teacher, facilitator, salesperson, whatever you're doing online. You need some extra help during virtual meetings. After all, there is a lot to do in these meetings so that they run smoothly for your audience. We've called this helper the producer. And our guest today, Mo Davari, is the Senior Desktop Support Specialist at Sangamo Therapeutics. He is that person who does this behind-the-scenes technical support, preparing, coordinating, and managing Zoom meetings for Sangamo. He makes sure that virtual events run smoothly and that speakers and presenters can focus on their message, not the tech behind it. And I can say that I have witnessed how his calm demeanor and voice put everyone at ease as they prepare to speak before big audiences. Mo has lived in 4 countries. In fact, he told me that he learned English by watching Friends. He enjoys photography, writing, and video games in his free time. Today, he shares his thoughts on what exactly a producer does behind the scenes, as well as what you can do to ensure that you're set up for success from a technical standpoint. Welcome to the podcast, Mo.
Thank you for having me.
I don't think a lot of people have a good view on what you do as a producer to ensure that virtual events and communications go well. So tell me, when you're preparing for an event and holding a rehearsal, what are some of the things that you do to make sure that everything's going to go smoothly from a technical standpoint?
Very good question. I guess it starts with the very first thing, which is the meeting ID and the password to get in, right? Because if you don't have those, you're not going to be able to do what you're supposed to do, right? So we want to make sure that all of our presenters and the audience have the right information.
Yeah, they got to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Once we get past that, though, obviously, it becomes the technical side of it, which is for your Zoom clients and software, whether you're using your laptop or your phone or tablet devices, they're all on the latest version, right? So it makes the whole experience a whole lot smoother.
Is there any specific advice that you would give our listeners to ensure that their technical elements will work well for them?
So one advice that we have for people is to either check for the latest version or make sure that even your Zoom client is restarted. So close your client, restart it before the meeting. And the same idea, I guess, goes for other aspects of it as well. So if you're using a laptop, for example, one of our advices for the presenters to reboot and restart your laptop on the day of the presentation, right? I guess the other side of it is having the right internet connection. So we are limited in what we can control with our internet providers, right? So, but what's actually in our control is to have the connection reset, I guess. So, in order to do that, we sometimes advise our presenters to restart the router, for example, or make sure that whatever else may be using your internet is not using it or is not in touch with the router during the presentation, right?
Yeah. My husband and I have a rule. If I'm doing a webinar, like he's not allowed to be playing any video games or using the internet in any way. Like it's mine for the hour.
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost as if you need to have a calendar and book it.
Yeah.
This is an important time. Don't stream any Netflix shows, for example.
Okay. So once all the technical stuff is out of the way, what else do you cover with your speakers or the presenters during those rehearsals?
The way we look at it is from the end user's point of view and experience. So we want to make sure that what they're looking at um, is something that's up to the standards of a normal presentation, right? That you would see on the web. So we want to make sure that our presenters have their cameras set up correctly, right? So the framing is a big part of it as well. So you kind of want to make sure that your camera is on the same level as your head, right? So you don't want to be looking down or looking up, because that kind of makes you look not as natural, right? And it could kind of also be distracting at times. The other part of it is that you want to make sure that the camera is at the right distance from your face, right? So that would allow you to, or that would allow the camera to actually capture your face and maybe half of your upper body. And you kind of want to position your camera in a way that your head would be on the 1/3 from the top on the screen, right? So that would be kind of in line with the golden rules of photography.
Yeah, you can, for those of you who are listening, if you don't know about the rule of thirds, you can find YouTube videos and you can just Google it for film, and there will be lots of advice there about how to frame yourself really well.
Exactly, yeah.
So, if you think about what you do on an even deeper level, how do you view your role in the big picture in the way you help speakers?
Very good question. So, in our experience, we want to make sure that it's as simple as it gets for our speakers, right? So they don't have to worry about uh, people who are not supposed to be speaking, right? Or other videos showing up when they're not supposed to, or other people sharing the screen when they're not supposed to. So we kind of take care of all of that. So with webinars, for example, we have the capability of uh, dividing the audience from the panelists, right? And then with that permission settings, we actually can control a whole bunch of stuff. Um, one other thing that we try to manage is time when it comes to the presentation, right? So,
Yeah,
uh,
I know all about getting speakers to stay in time.
yeah, that sometimes becomes challenging. But one thing that we've been doing is having time cards with numbers written on them, which presents how much time you have left as a presenter, right? So in a webinar format, the way it's set up allows the panelists to be able to see each other while even if you're presenting, right? And even if you have a screen shared with the audience. So that allows us to show the time cards, right? So if it says 5, it means, oh, you got 5 minutes left. So just kind of either speed it up or just be aware of how much time you have left. And then 1, and then time's up, for example, right?
Yeah. I actually saw someone doing a similar thing in a meeting where everyone could see. They just all knew that they had a certain amount of time. So there was one person whose job was to put the time up that was remaining, counting down, so that the speaker would know, oh, I really am coming up to the end of my time. And I don't want to steal time from the next person, because that's what happens when you go over, is you steal it from the next person. So
Yeah, exactly.
it really sounds like overall you're trying to help the speaker to be as comfortable as possible so that they can do well. But we know that speakers get really nervous. So, how do you deal with all of that nervousness that people can bring into the situation?
So for example, if I feel like the presenter is a little bit anxious, then I try to make a silly joke sometimes just to lighten the mood and kind of point out that this is just a normal speaking event, right? The whole technology side of it doesn't have to be a factor. If you get all your items on the list checked out, then you're good to go. You just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the content that you're going to be presenting.
So, Mo, from what you're describing, there are a lot of different moving parts to keep track of, and I'm sure as the event gets really large, with an all company meeting with hundreds and hundreds of people, the importance of things running smoothly goes way, way up. So it sounds like a lot for one person to handle. Are you really like magically doing all of this on your own?
Even if I wished I could do it, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. So no, we do have a team who is in charge basically, and who's in charge of the events, right? So we divide the responsibilities, for example. So one person could be in charge of the audio portion of it, and the other could be in charge of the actual sharing of the presentation. And then one other person could be in charge of the time, for example, or chatting with the panelists to let them know they're up next, for example. So we can, in our experience, what has worked best for us is when we have a team in place who can work well together to get the best result that we would want for our presentation.
Yeah. There's something in there too for people who maybe are with organizations or groups that can't afford to have a team available to them. Considering how do you break down these different tasks that a producer could fulfill or a helper can fulfill and give each person one small piece of it so that no one person is trying to manage everything. But if you break it down into small chunks, it's really manageable that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, Mo, I really appreciate your time with us today and sharing your expertise in this sort of new field that people are discovering a new need for. I know that you've made the events I've been a part of a lot more successful, and you've certainly helped the speakers to feel more comfortable so that they can show up on the day of the event and just share their stories and be there with the audience. So I know that it's a great experience for everyone.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to the Do Tell Virtually podcast. We have a lot of others in our series if you're interested in how to become your best virtual self, whether you are a speaker, a leader, trainer, teacher, facilitator, or salesperson. You can also check us out at our website at www.articulationinc.com. That's the word articulationinc.com. Thanks for tuning in and spending a little time with us. Until next time, have a great day.